Hello, it is Thursday, November 6th at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Marketing Live. Marketing Live is part of a higher education live network, a series of professional development workshops and podcasts, which are always free and accessible to you in the archives of higheredlive.com and on iTunes. Be a part of our broadcast by tuning in live and sharing your insights and questions using the hashtag HigherEdLive. You can receive weekly updates and live show dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter as well. Today's show would not be possible without the support of M. Stoner and FormStack. M. Stoner is a wonderful company. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing communications firm that works with education industries on branding, strategy, web design, and more. And FormStack. FormStack is a robust online form-building solution. With an intuitive drag-and-drop interface, the platform makes it easy for marketers to create branded, mobile-ready web forms without writing code. Build donation forms, contact forms, event registrations, and more with the web's only 508 compliant form builder. Publish your forms and use FormStack's social media plugins to maximize your traffic. With in-app analytics and partnerships with popular marketing tools, you can get even more out of your captured data. Visit www.formstack.com to receive more information about all the great things that FormStack does. So let's talk a little bit about our topic for today. Online advertising, also known as internet advertising, includes email marketing, search engine marketing, social media marketing, and many types of display advertising, including web banner advertising and mobile advertising. Like other advertising media, online advertising frequently involves both a publisher who integrates advertisements into its online content and an advertiser who provides the advertisements to be displayed on the publisher's content. Online advertising is a large business and growing rapidly. In 2011, internet advertising revenues in the United States surpassed those of cable television and nearly exceeded those of broadcast television. U.S. internet ad revenue hit historic highs of $20.1 billion for the first half of 2013 and up 18% over the same period in 2012. Let's look at our guest for today, Robin Holm. Robin is a designer and marketer in Birmingham, Alabama. Like many of those in higher education, Robin has a full range of experience, from designing static and interactive online ads to developing comprehensive digital marketing strategies and campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. Robin is a proud alumnus of the University of Alabama with a BS in journalism and a minor in computer science. She spends her spare time volunteering across the Southeast and thinking about her super epic sister in Virginia. Welcome, Robin. We're very excited to have you here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited too.
If any of our viewers have any questions, please remember to use the hashtag HigherEdLive on Twitter. So let's dive right into it. So let's be honest, Robin. Everyone hates pop-ups and believes that ads don't work. Recent studies indicate that over half of mobile clicks online are accidental or fraudulent based on the fact that people view the ad for about 2 seconds or less. So why should companies be using online advertising?
Well, they actually call the mobile advertisements that get clicked on, they call them fat finger clicks. Because it's true, you know, the text is so small on your mobile phone that it's easy to click on something that you don't mean to. And, you know, really all online advertising can serve one of two purposes. One, it can drive the viewer to your internet storefront, your online storefront, or two, it can serve for branding purposes. The only way that number one can be successful is if you have a really rockin' website that can actually take the consumer's data, make a purchase where that user does not ever have to leave their home. They can go straight to your website, purchase something, and have it delivered to their door. The second one, branding, that is the number one reason people advertise online, and that's because as a user, you're more likely to remember a message if you're seeing it in multiple medias. So if you see a commercial on the television and then you also see the commercial online, you're over twice as likely to remember that message. So that's really the benefit there. And a lot of companies, especially small startups, which is a big majority of my background is small local businesses, don't really have the funds to have a branding internet campaign. So there's other ways about it that you can go about spending your money wisely to get that return on your investment.
Excellent. So let's dive into that a little bit. So what are some of the avenues we should consider in higher ed for getting the best bang for our buck?
Yeah, higher ed is a unique industry because there's a lot of different facets to it. You've got, you know, the bookstores that actually are selling merchandise, and they would use internet advertising to drive the customer right to their website. But most higher ed would be using the internet advertising for a branding purpose. And that is that if you see the message more and more and more, when it comes time to make that decision on where you're going to go to college or, you know, where you're going to donate, you're more likely to choose that university.
Fantastic. We're doing some live tweeting during this presentation as well, so this is good. So can you kind of dive down a little bit more into specifics? So if I want to start doing some online advertising, what should I start doing? So, you know, in my office, I work at the University of Virginia, and one of the first things that we tried doing was to do Facebook advertising, you know, to get people to go to our events. So what are some different things we should consider?
Well, the very first thing that you should keep in mind is you need to think about your customer. You need to think about, where is my customer? What websites are they on? What are they most likely to look at, etc. If your customer is, let's say for instance, that you sell like equipment for sports teams, like uniforms, baseball bats, etc., and your customer is middle school and high school kids, it would be foolish to have an ad that serves during school hours. So all internet advertising should allow you to do something called targeted advertising, where you can narrow down the hours that your ad is even served. So you're not wasting your advertising dollars having your ad served to people that your product might not necessarily apply to. So you could have your ad only running from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. and only on sports websites to really narrow down and make your advertising dollars work for you. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the return.
No, I think that's a really good point, and so often people forget some of the simple things, like knowing that our students are in class during the middle of the day, and I mean right now for our website and most of our social media marketing, I just started at the University of Virginia, most of them are happening while everyone's in class. And folks don't seem to understand that the biggest times that our website is hit is around 9 o'clock at night when the students are at home, they're in bed, or they're in their apartments. I guess I'm in bed because I'm old, but that's when they're up, that's when they're active, that's when they're doing things, not during the middle of the day. So that's when we need to leverage our times of communication. That's perfect. I love that.
Well, and there's a local restaurant here in town that I thought their advertising campaign was brilliant because, when you have a university or you have, a restaurant or a storefront, you're getting hit up by advertisers left and right. They're wanting you to spend your money with them, and they're going to convince you that their product is best. And you could end up spending thousands of dollars and not having it work for you at all. So, this restaurant, they really thought about their customer. This restaurant, it's called Five. Their premise is they're a fine dining restaurant. They only offer 5 choices for appetizers, 5 choices for dinner entrees, and 5 choices for alcoholic drinks. So you go in there, it eliminates, how you normally go to a restaurant, there's like 4 pages of a menu and it's really hard to decide. It eliminates all of that because they're saying that they're spending the most time on these 5 entrees and anything you order is going to be excellent because they took their time to make it. And their customer is young adults who, maybe want to dip their toe into fine dining but don't necessarily know where to start. So that's who they're appealing to. They're appealing towards, college students and young adults in the business world. And so they advertised on Pandora. And Pandora was great. They said, okay, well, we're going to serve your ad within 60-mile radius of your restaurant that also happens to be near a college campus. And we're going to serve it during lunchtime and dinner hours. And they saw a big return on their investment there because they were smart about it and they thought about who their customer was. And their customer is sitting at the library studying, listening to Pandora.
That's absolutely brilliant, because I didn't even think about advertising on Pandora. We're using Facebook, and we did a show a couple of months back where the students are like, yeah, I'm kind of on Facebook, not really, that's where my parents are. And so,
right.
I mean, universities are scrambling of how do I get my information out to the students, and Pandora, what a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and Facebook is great too, but more and more people are turning away from Facebook because, like you said, their parents are on it. It's becoming a place where you post baby pictures and pictures of your dog, and you don't necessarily talk about the hard-hitting issues. So even college students are turning away towards it. They actually say, the fastest growing social media is Twitter, and Twitter is just growing and growing and growing because it's short and sweet. They can put out there what they need to. But for me, Twitter advertising was always a little difficult because there's no guarantee that your customer is going to see your ad because it moves so rapidly.
Yeah, that's very true.
One of my favorite mediums to use was actually LinkedIn. I loved LinkedIn advertising because, especially as a young adult in the business world, I could target. They had very good targeting parameters. You could target by job title, by age, by gender, by zip code. You could even target by company size that they work for. So if you only want to reach people that work in small companies, 10 to 50 people, you could reach that. Or if you want to reach Fortune 500 companies with thousands of people, you could reach them. So LinkedIn was very successful too.
I never even thought of that. That's really, really neat. So when it comes to starting in higher ed, right, oftentimes we're, kind of in this balance of, a lot of times we want to use consultants, but sometimes maybe it's just as easy to do it ourselves. So when it comes to online advertising, should we use a consultant or should we try it ourselves, or what do you think?
This generation, they know more about online advertising than a lot of the consultants do. I worked for a cable company that was a Fortune 500 company, and I worked in a department with two other ladies, and the three of us, kind of broke into internet advertising for this cable company, and we knew more about it than even some of the top executives did, because it's just a new medium for people. People hear internet advertising, they get really scared about it, whereas really the younger generation, they feel comfortable with it. It's no big deal to them. So I would say if you feel comfortable, do your research and think about your customer, and you can make those decisions. And you can always start out small. The biggest thing I recommend is not to do just one thing. Do at least two things, because your customer is more than likely going to see that from both angles, and they're more likely to remember your brand and your message. And that's the whole point of advertising.
So you're talking about do more than just one thing. So what should I start on?
So a lot of, especially universities, they have television commercials. So when I worked for the cable company, we would have TV commercials running, and then it was easy to just slap that commercial online. And what we would do is we would have little buttons popping up where you could say, click here to visit our website, or find out about classes that we have coming up, click here to see our class schedule, click here to have an advisor contact you, etc. And these were especially good for the advertiser, the university, because the people that were watching the cable also had that internet provider. So they were seeing this ad in both places. And they say nowadays, when you're at any given time, your cell phone is within 3 feet of you.
Really?
Even in the bathroom.
Ew.
Oh, yeah. Well, think about it. You sleep next to your cell phone. It's your alarm clock. It's within 3 feet of you at any given time. sitting down and watching TV, you have at least 2 other forms of media within a few feet of you as well. So think about it. You're sitting there watching TV. You've got a laptop on your lap. Your cell phone's right next to you. 3 forms of media within 10 feet of you, and you're just relaxing after work.
So how do you...
So if you think about that, so if you advertise online, you advertise on TV, you can even do a mobile messaging campaign. All of these things will be successful for you.
Well, how do you avoid, customer fatigue? If they're hearing your message all over the place, how do you avoid having them be over inundated with things and get bored with it? I mean, that's one of the things with when it comes to communication with students. Right now, emails aren't very effective because we're sending out hundreds
I know.
to the university a month. It's crazy.
Oh yeah, at my last job, we actually stopped email marketing completely because it just wasn't effective. Half of them were getting put in the spam folder. So it's really thinking outside of the box. A lot of it is repetition, and people don't like to hear that word because they see wasted dollars. If your commercial is playing over and over and over again, that person's their eyes are gonna glaze over. They're not gonna hear that message. But what you hope is that, take Coca-Cola for instance. How many Coca-Cola commercials or billboards or advertisements do you see every single day? And your eyes glaze over. You don't necessarily notice that you see a Coca-Cola advertisement. But when you're at the gas station, they're hoping that you are going to reach for a Coke and buy it. But the problem is that a lot of people don't have that advertising budget. So it's just about being smart with your advertising dollars and making them work for you and getting the result that you want.
So how do you tell if something is effective? How do you know if something actually worked?
That is the beautiful thing about online advertising, is that every campaign that you run, no matter the website, no matter the medium, they should be able to give you a productivity report that shows how many clicks you got, how many viewers you received, and data like that will give you a clear indication on whether it worked or not. And they say that the best thing to do is to give it at least 3 months.
3 months?
At 3 months, you'll see. What?
3 months? That sounds so long.
They actually say that it's smartest to give it a year, but after 3 months, you should have a pretty clear indicator if it's going to work for you or not.
That's crazy. I mean, right now, every higher ed institution I've worked for, most of the time they're planning for the next month, maybe 2-3 months out. So
yeah.
The idea of having something in place potentially a year ahead of time would be really hard to do. How do you...
Well, and that's kind of one of the struggles with internet advertising, is that we've become a generation of just instant gratification. People go online and everybody has ADD. They say the average time spent on any website is like 10 seconds. So I mean, that becomes a challenge. How do you get that message there with 10 seconds where the user's actually going to take that with them? And there's different ways that you can do that just through design. Video banners, they probably aren't going to get as big of click-through rate. But when you're talking about brand and message recall, you're going to get a higher rate there. So you can do something called pre-roll. Pre-roll is a tool that, what it does is it takes your commercial and it plays it before a video. So you could do pre-roll on YouTube. I'm sure you've seen it before, where you're about to watch a YouTube video, an advertisement comes up, you have to watch the advertisement for 30 seconds before you can watch your video. That's called pre-roll. Pre-roll gets the highest clicks because normally the pre-roll video rolls and you also have an advertisement on the side. And you have to watch it. So it's forcing your user to take in that message.
But don't people hate that?
A lot of people hate that. Yeah, a lot of people hate that. But if you want results, that's going to get you high results. The other thing that people hate is those flash banner ads. They're awful. They like jiggle, and they might say something disgusting about like fat or whatever. You don't want to do that. Yeah.
Basically fat.
It's the kind of banner where you feel like if you click on it, you're gonna get terrible spam and your computer's gonna get a virus. Don't be that guy. You don't want that. But another thing you could do in the place is you could do an animated banner where you have a very clean looking banner. It's stay true to your brand. You might have it look a lot like your website or the campaign that you're promoting. And you'll just have things slowly creep in, or you'll have a button pop up that says click here. And those produce very good results as well. And those aren't flashy in your face. They're just subtle movements that make your eye look in that direction and say, oh, hey, that's cool. I'll click on that.
Very cool. That's a really good idea. So let's say that what is the first step I should do when I decide that, okay, I want to do online advertising. I'm working for the University of Virginia Career Services Center. Where should I start?
I would say you need to make a list about who your customers are. So if you're making an ad for the Career Center, I would say your customer could be anywhere from current college students, it could be high school students thinking about their future, and it could be the current workforce thinking about going back to school. It's a trifecta. So you need to be strategic about your advertising. The younger generations, they're not going to click on banner ads. They know better than that. And so you could do something like a social media advertising campaign like Facebook or LinkedIn where it comes as part of their news feed. And I've seen that be very successful. Now the older generation, the people already in the workplace, you could do banner ads for them. You could do email marketing. You could also do some outside advertising that's not internet related. Billboards I've seen have been successful. Even television commercials and direct mail is sometimes really successful.
Interesting. So let's say that I went and we just did a Facebook ad for our career fair that we had last week. And so my boss asked me, I gave him a whole bunch of information about, how much we paid for it, how many times it was viewed, and how many clicks we actually got. And he asked me, is that good? And I said, sure, because I went through and tried to do some research on it, but how do I really know what's good for these different results? I mean, are there good places to go for benchmarking and stuff like that? Because I just ended up, every place I went for benchmarking information was kind of varied, and Facebook doesn't give me a whole lot of information.
Well, Google Analytics is your best friend. And across the web, way across the board, the average click-through rate is just 0.05 or less. And the click-through rate is just clicks per 1,000 impressions. That's all that means. So you can think, okay, my click-through rate is 0.05. That means like one person out of 10,000 people that saw my ad actually clicked on it. That's terrible. And what an advertising executive is going to tell you is that, that was great. You got 10,000 eyeballs on your ad. But to you, the person trying to sell the product, it's not that great because only one person went to my website, right? So the way to determine if it's good or not is to really decide how much that click was worth to you and if that transfers into profitability. And that varies over what you're trying to sell. If you're a car company, that one click might turn into a $20,000 sale. That was a great campaign. But if you're a small boutique and that one click just transferred to a $30 T-shirt and you spent $500 on the campaign, that was not good.
Yeah, so it's the big thing is having return on investment. I know once we did the Facebook campaign, our interaction on Facebook was really high. Maybe not with that particular ad, but we had twice as many people come to our fair this year than they did last year.
Well, then I would say that was a very successful campaign. if you had that much turnaround. And, you know, advertising's funny because they could see that advertising message and not even realize that they saw it. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're talking about that company or that university later in conversation. So anytime you can elicit a response like that, that is super positive.
So because when you look directly at the ad, it doesn't look like it was really successful, but we did have more people coming. So what's a good way for me to be able to understand how people, or is it kind of a combination? So I'm thinking, how did they find out about my event? Because I know through Google Analytics I can track how many times they were coming to our website and stuff like that, but because we're not doing online sales.
What websites they came there to.
Yeah.
So if they're coming from Facebook, you can attribute that to that campaign.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if you're getting more traffic, I would consider that an intangible result of the advertising campaign, and that deserves recognition as well.
I love that. So it's not just whether or not you're getting clicks, it's whether or not, you know, if your website traffic goes up, they may not be clicking on it, but they will remember it later and go back to it.
Yeah, and actually a lot of when I'm online and I see an internet banner and internet advertising, I never click on it, ever. And I work in internet advertising, but it's so ingrained in my mind, don't click on that, like it's scary. But what I will do is if I see a good advertisement, I'll open up a new tab or a new window, and I'll go to that website directly, not necessarily from the ad itself.
I love that. I think you're exactly right. So, and just a reminder to all the folks that are viewing this, you can ask any questions to Robin using the hashtag HigherEdLive on Twitter. So as we're going through this, so what are some of the things we should be concerned about when it comes to online advertising? It looks like there's so many opportunities and there's ways to illustrate our success. And so the big messages you've told us are to diversify and you know, the big one that I love and I'm going to share across is that you need to have online advertising up for at least 3 months in order for it to be effective, or any type of advertising. And hopefully that will help people to be thinking more than a week or 2 weeks ahead of things. So, so what are some things we should be concerned about when it comes to online advertising?
I would just say be careful with your money because you could spend thousands of dollars and not see a return. And the way to do that is just to really consider your customer. I mean, that's really the biggest point today, is just consider where your customer is and how to reach them. There's also this wonderful thing that we haven't really talked about. It's called an ad network. And several companies carry them. You can also, Google has an ad network. You could even just search ad network. You'll find several of them. And an ad network is a network of about hundreds of thousands of websites all over the web. And they categorize them, like they might categorize them towards home, and home might include, you know, Southern Living, Home and Garden, HGTV, etc. Then they'll categorize sports, and sports might include, you know, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, etc. So if you're wanting to reach a certain type of person, let's say I'm trying to reach, you know, a stay-at-home mom that, you know, maybe her kids are out of the house, they're in school, she's thinking about getting back in the workforce, but she needs another degree. So I would say, okay, I'm going to advertise on an ad network, and I'm going to really think about my customer. What websites is she going to? And you can narrow it down really, really far. So you can say, okay, I only want to advertise on home and garden websites. I'm only going to advertise to people aged 35 to 50, women, within this zip code, and that have a 50,000 to 100,000 household income. And you can get really granular with it. And you send in your ads serve, they'll give you a report, but they only target those individuals. You know, nothing we do online is anonymous. They know who you are, they know how much money you make, they know, you know, they know where you live, they know what websites you go to. So advertising can get really target your customer if that's what you want to do, and that's what you should do.
And that's so creepy if you think about it, where everything's being watched by Google.
Oh, it's super creepy. Yes, especially when you'll see a printout of like where the people are coming from, and you can see like websites, you can see IP addresses. It's just, there's a lot of information out there, and I think right now they're trying to figure out what all to do with it. But that can work to your advantage because you can really reach that customer if that's what you're wanting to do.
My goodness, I feel like I need to go home and give my computer a bath. I wasn't going to anything shady, but I want everything off of it.
Yeah. Oh, it's super creepy.
Yeah, and that's one thing I thought was interesting with Google Analytics is that a lot of different higher education organizations and groups are not actually using Google Analytics to their fullest potential. You know, most universities I've looked at or consulted with aren't looking at their Google Analytics. I'm like, it tells you right there, are they more male, are they more female, how many people? So instead of making inferences, it says right there. So when you were talking about how we need to make sure that our messages are really targeted, one of the things that folks are going to ask is, how do I know exactly who my message is? How do I know that I'm reaching that female in this specific neighborhood within this specific income range? And my answer is you can go to Google Analytics and it'll tell you right away who exactly those folks are and just transfer it over, you know?
Right.
So how do we...
Oh, and talk about, too...
You're good.
Oh, I'm sorry, you kind of broke that. But talk about, too, about really being able to make your website as successful as you can. You implement Google Analytics, all of a sudden you know exactly who's coming to your website, what they're about, what they're trying to do, and you can really customize your site to be the most attractive to them, which you should do.
No, I love that. So how do we avoid the whole spam feeling? How do we avoid folks feeling like, you know, that, I mean, it's getting to be Christmas and holiday time, and it's not even, what is it, it's November 6th today, and I mean, my goodness, any store you go into, it's, you know, giant Christmas trees and everything's red and green, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we just had Halloween, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. So how do we do this and make sure that we're not, you know, over inundating people with our messaging? You know, we don't want to become Christmas where they're just sick of us.
Oh, you're telling me I live in Birmingham, Alabama, the deep south. 2 major radio stations have been playing Christmas music for almost a month so far, since before Halloween. So we're definitely feeling it. And you don't want to be that person. I think just being strategic about how you're spending, you know, really thinking about your customer are the 2 goals that you should have. Somebody that feels like they're being targeted or you're spamming them. But at the end of the day, it's about having your message be received and having them remember it.
Do you ever do?
And that's what you want.
Do you ever do focus groups or ask customers what they think of your advertising, whether or not they like it or if they think it's annoying, or, you know? So, for example, you know, my partner absolutely hates the Coca-Cola ads and McDonald's ads. He just cannot stand it. But the Sonic ads he thinks are absolutely hilarious. So, I mean, are there ways that
you can do that, especially the university has this great resource, which is your students. So you can absolutely ask them, how did you hear about this university? What made you want to come here? And that would give you a great insight onto where you should spend your advertising dollars going forward.
I know universities all over the country are talking about survey fatigue. You know, we're sending out students, without exaggeration, you know, dozens of surveys to fill out throughout the year. So instead of doing it through email, are there other ways in which we can get surveyed information? You know, should we have them text?
Offer a prize.
Do what?
Offer a prize. You have to provide an incentive and they will fill that thing out. And it doesn't even have to be anything very big. It could be, you know, a $50 gift card to a local restaurant. and you will get a lot of people filling out that survey.
What if I work in higher ed and I don't have $50 for in my budget to get everybody? You know, like, are there other avenues besides?
Well, no, not everybody. Not everybody. You just say you're entered into a drawing to win a prize.
Oh, I love that.
So, I mean, most people won't even win it. They'll still fill out that survey because the idea of winning it is so exciting.
Very cool. So are there opportunities to leverage getting their opinion in other avenues besides email? So could we have them text us their feedback before classes? Are there,
Good.
could they give us, when you check out of a grocery store and it says, was this person helpful, yes or no, on the little checkout screen? I don't know if you've seen that. Is that something you could do, or is that, how hard is it to set something like that up?
Okay, that's not hard at all. Actually, the university, I'm sure, already has a texting system in place, and because all universities have one. You have to be careful with that, because if you make it mandatory that you have to get a response from them, you could end up leaving a sour taste in people's mouth. So I don't know. In the past, the thing that I've seen work the best is having some kind of incentive. And, text message advertising, that's a fairly new medium. I worked in that field for about a year, and it's really only successful if you have a very loyal customer base. And the great thing about the university audience that it is the younger generation, so they are texting and they feel comfortable with that avenue. But there needs to be some kind of benefit, because they're going to say, what's in it for me to text you? Why should I do this? So
we do have a question from Mike Hatfield, and he wants to know, Robin, do you have any quick examples of landing pages? And what folks should land on when it comes to the content, or from the ad? Where should we be driving them to?
Okay, so if you there's multiple answers to that question. If you don't have a website at all, but you want to do internet advertising, I had that come up many times, many more times than you would believe. Especially at the local level, local businesses don't have a website, but they want an online presence, which is smart, you should. So as a landing page, you can either link to one of their social media pages. Most frequently we use Facebook, because Facebook, right at the top, they have, the contact information, they have posts from the owner where they might be updating their customers, and user can just click that like button, and then all of a sudden they're getting that content in their newsfeed every single day. So that's a really good thing to do as a landing page. But let's say you don't have a social media presence, which you should have a social media presence, but let's say you don't. They can also build you a landing page, and it can be basic. It can be built in Photoshop. It can look just like the ad that's running, and we would make it, or you would want to make it, as basic as you can. So you might have a phone number, directions, maybe a list of some of your products, or maybe incentives on why they should contact you, and maybe a picture. But I would just keep it really simple, because what you're wanting them to do, if you don't have a website, is to hop in their car and come to your business. So if it's a higher ed event, I would assume that the landing page would serve as a point of contact for an event, because obviously the university has a website that you could link to, but you're wanting to link to a particular thing. So I would treat it almost just like you would treat a flyer that you would hand out on campus. Very basic, captures their attention, gives them all the information they need, because remember, they're only going to be there for less than 10 seconds. So you want it short and sweet, and then they can come to your event if they want.
I think that's such a good point of keeping it, that they're only going to look at your stuff for 10 seconds. So one of the big things I learned now working in career services is that the average employer only looks at your resume for 8 seconds.
Oof,
And
I didn't know.
yeah, isn't that crazy? So,
Yes.
but what an important message that correlates with what you're saying is that, we only have 10 seconds to generate their interest. So if you have a
Mhm.
flyer that has all of these details and all of this information, folks aren't going to look at it. Keep it simple, to the point, and get them there. I love that.
We are the instant gratification generation. We want the information fast. If we don't get it fast, we'll move on. So, and that's why even with advertising campaigns, there's several different ad sizes that you can buy. A lot of the ad networks will make you buy all of them. And um, just for straight static banners or animated banners, there's several different sizes. The very best one that you could buy is at the very top of the page. It's horizontal, long and skinny. It's called a leaderboard. It's 728 pixels by 90 pixels, and it's usually at the top of the screen. And the reason that this ad size is so successful is because it's the very first thing that people see when they open that web page. The other ad sizes, there's pros and cons to all of them. If you get to a website and they're trying to sell you a leaderboard, but it's at the very bottom of the page, do not buy it, because nobody's scrolling that far down. I've seen click-through rates as low as 0.01 or even 0.00. People, it'll count as an impression because the page is open, but they're not even seeing your ad because they're not scrolling that far. So only buy a leaderboard if it's at the very top. Another ad size that's really successful that I've seen is called a skyscraper. It's long and skinny, vertical. So it's 160 by 600 pixels. And oftentimes, this kind of advertisement, it's found on regular pages, but I've seen it the most successful when it's found on an email, because everybody has to check their email. So they're seeing your ad because they're in their email inbox, and honestly, they're in their inbox for longer than 10 seconds. So you're going to get success there from a message and a branding recall because they're seeing that message longer.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Robin. And as we're closing up here, to wrap up, what is the most important thing that we should remember when it comes to advertising? So you gave us a whole bunch of fantastic information about diversifying, targeting our messages, making sure that we're really looking at the return on investment and being smart at how much we're spending. So what is like the biggest, most important thing that we need to know?
Just consider your customer, number one thing, and don't do it if it doesn't make sense for your company or for your university, because at the end of the day, it's your dollars and they need to work for you. And the best way that they're going to do that is if you're reaching the right person.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Robin Holm, for joining us on our show today. Marketing Live will be back in 2 weeks with Tim Jones, so folks, make sure you tune in for that. And as always, you can watch more shows from marketing experts on the Marketing Live archive on higheredlive.com. Thanks to everyone who tuned in live, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right, thank you.